IJM, our core duty is to work to protect the vulnerable from all forms of violence in the world. And across the different continents that we work, we have different caseworks that we embark on. And some of the caseworks that we embark on are child protection of children against online sexual exploitation. We also work against children and women who are being in some sort of violence in other parts of the world. But specifically in Ghana, our work is in twofold. We work to stop all forms of child trafficking on the Volta Lake, and then secondly, to stop cross-border trafficking, which is becoming a big issue in the world right now, but especially in Ghana. We are very grateful for this opportunity to partner with Parliament, especially through Honorable Davis. And we want to thank you so much for the opportunity. We are here to listen and learn, and we want to assure everyone here that whatever partnership that we can partner, whatever support that we can give, I think this fight, we are really ready to offer that. And before I end, I want to say a big thank you to the ministry, to Parliament, and to government generally for increasing the funding for anti-trafficking in the budget for the new year. And it was a great step, and we want to say a big thank you to you for that. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chief Advocate for IJM. At this point, I want to invite the Deputy Minister for Gender, Children and Social Protection to give us a brief remark.
I'm just too happy that today I associate myself with my honorable colleagues and IJM and then students from various universities and the media to talk about this issue that is very prevalent in our society. A lot of people don't think that human trafficking is real, but it's real. We working closely with them. I'm going to have the figures to tell you where they send these children to, how they end our interventions, what we have done as a ministry, and then how far some are behind bars and then some are were walking free to take us through. So I must say that I recommend my honorable colleague for this bold step. He has done a very human job to try to bring all of us to listen to human trafficking issues. And as MPs, we all have these problems in our constituencies. Just as he said, that immediately it happens, they come to the MP to try to solve the problem. It happens. Then the chief will call, the assemblyman is there. Before you realize, your mother is crying that you are selling yourself out, you are selling your money, your family, and all those things. So at the point, you don't have the willpower, at the point you give it. So these are the problems that we're encountering in our communities. So I'm very grateful that today's discussions will actually bring out the issues, address the issues. Where do we start from? Today's discussion will easily tell us what to do. But Ghana in 2021 is still a country of origin. A transit, Ghana is one of the transits of destination of human trafficking related crimes. There is currently a phenomenon of keynet that has, this keynet has been seen in dealing with cybercrime and human trafficking. As a ministry, we have observed that while some children are trafficked from homes, others migrate unaccompanied by various reasons. They go on their own. But if some, maybe the parents are maltreating he or her, she decides to leave. Some to somebody, somewhere, peer group influence, deceive them to leave. So all these people, they travel to neighboring countries, like he said, Gulf of the Arab Gulf, some just here in Volta region, just here. I think most of them were able to intercept a lot of them around that area. And these children, they go through a lot of forms of discrimination. Some are being beaten, raped, a lot, everything. When you listen to their stories, it's very pathetic. Physical abuse, and some even traumatized. Some come home from the Gulf of this Arab mentally derailed. Some of them, they leave scars on their body because their masters were beating them and all those things. So the passage of the Human Trafficking Act 694 was adopted through the UN Trafficking Protocol in 2000, which is meant to prevent and suppress human trafficking, protect and assist victims of trafficking, investigate and prosecute offenders of human trafficking, collaborate and promote cooperation among stakeholders like us here. And civil society groups, we have also successfully passed the Human Trafficking Regulation in November 2015. After engaging extensively with stakeholders, the LI is also standardized the effective implementation of Human Trafficking Act 2005, Act 694, and to address various gaps in the fight against human trafficking. Further, to this, the ministry finalized the National Plan of Action for the period of 2022 to 2026. We have finalized that National Plan of Action to effectively coordinate our collective actions and end human trafficking in our country through a coordinated implementation of the NPA, as well as to give effect to the Human Trafficking Act of 2005, Act 694, and its legislative instruments L12219. During the year 2021 alone, our security services and our stakeholders rescued almost 821 victims of human trafficking. Over 108 cases were investigated. Yet, in terms of prosecution, always, when you send these cases to court, it takes time. You know, court cases, it delay. Most of the perpetrators are walking free because of the interventions that we all do, all of us, including me, because I'm an MP, so I sometimes do these interventions, even though I don't like them. This human trafficking includes a lot of children. That's my worry. A lot of them are children who they don't even know why they are being sent away. Some of them are being deceived that you are going to stay with a parent and all those things. So we have to salvage these children and let them be in school. I'm happy that my colleague, honorable member, is taking this very high, and I will support him in every way to sell the issue and also how we can prevent the issue. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm most grateful. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Deputy Minister, for the remarks. At this point, I'll invite Abna Asari, who is the coordinator of human trafficking at the Ministry for Gender, Children and Social Protection, to give us a short presentation.
When sometimes Parliament says, as a government worker, come to Parliament, you are not so sure as to how things are going to be. But I think today's meeting means I can talk freely and tell how the situation really is. When it comes to the global data and national data, I think most of them are online. And the time that I was given, I have made my PowerPoint very brief so that we can have more time for discussion. That will bring out the issues. And so my presentation starts with the ministry's mandate and I think all of us know. So I'll skip to the main definition for trafficking. Please, next slide. Okay. And so when you take the definition for human trafficking, it's quite a very long definition. Not because but we're trying to ensure we cover everything, but still, there are so many emerging issues that are coming up. Like Honorable Deputy rightly mentioned, the QNet situation is a new phenomenon that is happening where individuals are being trafficked from the neighboring countries, mainly Niger, Togo, and they are harboring them in a room. So you can get about 60 people in a room, and all that they are doing is they're giving them computers to pretend to be trading. And they are now working under very hazardous condition, and if you do not meet your target, no food for you, nothing. They have been deceived that there is work in Ghana, And our investigation revealed it's not only Ghana, there are Ghanaians also being taken to Ivory Coast and others. And so these are some of the new phenomena. But it's an act of recruiting, transporting, harboring, sometimes kidnapping, through force, deceit, mainly deceit, majority of the time, or coercion. And then the main purpose for trafficking is exploitation. It can be sexual exploitation, labor exploitation, and I think I will take my time I move on to let us understand the various differences between child work, child labor, and child trafficking as well. And so to make it simple, we've classified it into three main categories. What we call the act, the means, and the purpose. And so the act mainly is how the recruitment was done. Sometimes innocently we have our media doing adverts. Job in Dubai, they need drivers. They do not ask questions as to who the advertiser is and the main intended purpose. I don't see how Dubai will need engineers or mechanical workers and they will come to Ghana to recruit them. But unfortunately, people fall for it. Now we have our phones in hand, and so it's just mere WhatsApps that are being used for the recruitment. And so you wouldn't even get hint of it. Africans, we are scared of witches. So they tell the victims that don't tell your parents, don't tell anybody. Otherwise, witchcraft will spoil your plans for traveling. And so they don't tell anybody and they end up in the Gulf countries. Sometimes they tell them they are really going to UK, only to end up there because there is a connection man doing your passport for you. And so you don't even get to see. Then they will bring it to you with visas and everything. Sometimes these Gulf countries, they will tell you visa on arrival. And then you get there, they go in disguise as tourists, going to visit, and then they end up being exploited. And so the exploitation takes so many forms. There are some when they come, not only did they engage them in sexual exploitation with so many men, as many as 30 a day, sometimes they force them to sleep with dogs and even horses, just to dehumanize them because they are blacks. I mean, it's plainly as that, just to let you know you are not a human being. With the children, yes, we have a lot of, mainly now our data trend is showing high number of Nigerians in Ghana being exploited and trafficked. Please, we can move on. And so we have, yes, internal trafficking and external human trafficking. The internal mainly, as the name suggests, being trafficked within the country. And it's mainly more children within the country than adults. And so majority of those trafficked within Ghana are children. And it has gender dimension. So if it is for fiction sector, we have more boys in there than girls. The girls are often used for domestic purposes. If it is for domestic work, we have more girls than boys. There have been a little and few incidents where we've had things to investigate about Kayaye, and there is now people who go and mask them, recruit them, and come and share, and they are receiving monies on their behalf, and these children are working, but they never get to see anything of their work. And so some syndicate of trafficking too have set in there that people are enjoying in their favor. We have, of course, the external one, which involves cross-border. Few are children being trafficked to our neighboring countries. So Gambia, mainly through the coast, because we joined the lakes together. And interestingly, for fishing purposes, same way, Ivory Coast in the cocoa sector for purposes of labor exploitation. But majority of them are adults. In the past, it was a trend of our men, young men, going through Libya to get to Italy through unapproved routes. They pay connection men to get fake documents and others. The Libya crisis came, so it reduced a little, but it doesn't mean it has ended. Unfortunately or fortunately, our young women started because of the service industry within Europe and then the Gulf countries, and so majority of them started migrating to go and engage in domestic work. Unfortunately, other people started cashing in to traffic them, and so we have more of our young girls being trafficked to the Gulf countries. I think all of us know about those stories, and so it's no news. The purposes I've mentioned. Organ removal has become very, very, very common now. Unfortunately, the victim does not live to tell the story. Those that we've heard are those that their kidneys were removed. So they come deceive you and tell you the job that you are going to do, you need to do a medical test. And so before you realize your kidney one has been removed, they will tell you didn't pass the recommended standard of medical procedures or medical fitness that they need. Most people don't realize that even their kidneys have been removed until something happens. Or those who know that, no, I can see a mark that wasn't there before, how did I get this? They will tell you, oh, you collapsed, you passed out. And so they are selling those kidneys. The stories also from those going through the desert, we've had rebels actually take them, and all the parts are removed from your heart, your liver, anything that is sellable. Leukemia needs, of course, your bone marrow, it's business for them. Your heart, when you Google, you can see the black market. I mean, as much as $150,000 for heart. So if one person is trafficked and your body parts are harvested, it's a lot of money. So that recruiter or your mother can be sent, oh, $20,000. Your daughter or your son is doing very well. You think my daughter is abroad. Unfortunately, he is gone or she is gone. So for purposes of child labor is part of labor exploitation, but I'm taking my time to explain child labor here. Most people think we are saying children shouldn't work. That is not the assertion that we are claiming. We are saying children can work, they can be socialized, they can be trained. We need to train our children to become better persons of themselves. And so when you even identify their capacity, you need to ensure you develop it. But then it translates into child labor if the work that the child is doing is hazardous, is beyond the age limit of that child. It has medical and moral, challenges that may come to affect the child, the health of the child, the growth of the child. And so we say fishing on the Volta Lake is child labor and hazardous because our law says if you are not even 21, you are not supposed to engage in fishing. Secondly, the time. Children are latest by 8 o'clock are supposed to be indoors. But all of us know that as early as 4 a.m., these kids need to be on the lake. Go back, no food, come back, entangle or disentangle the nets. No school is interfered, and education is one key indicator in identifying child labor. And so, Honorable rightly said it. Most people know what they are doing. Their own children are in school. All the rescues we've done, these children are not children of the fishermen. Their own children are in school. And they go deceive others and bring them to the various communities to use them. It's only some parents who don't know and they'll tell them, oh, give him to me for apprenticeship. If you are not at age 15, you can't even be in apprenticeship. 13, you can do light work, and light work means work that are not dangerous or hazardous. You cannot be engaged in paid work. And so if somebody have made it a matter of job to go around communities, recruit all these children, come give it to somebody, sell these children, collect money on behalf, or collect money, gain money, then that particular action is a crime. And so we are not saying children shouldn't work. Children can take up jobs that are within their age limits, that are appropriate, as we say. So what are the approaches that as a country or globally we've taken? We have what we call the 4 Ps. It's a global agenda for all of us when you take the Parliamentary protocol, and Ghana has also adopted it. We have prevention, protection, and prosecution. I realize that if I have to tell all that Ghana have done in these areas, it will be a lot more slides than I can handle. But then, when you take prevention, it's anything you will do to ensure that trafficking doesn't happen. And so what do? We embark on awareness raising campaigns, capacity building for our law enforcement officers and key stakeholders that are involved. we ensure that you are telling anything that you will do to ensure that trafficking does not happen. For community sensitization, I can't even count the number of communities we've visited. We've partnered with a lot of MPs here even to go to their various communities to ensure that we educate their community so that you won't come back and say, Honorable, come and help me. I mean, we've had a lot of rape because sometimes they will go and lie. They will never tell the real story until you come in and realize that, oh, they've really trafficked, exploiting, and then, you know, making money out of these children. So protection mainly means if the person has been trafficked, what do? You have to rescue. So the 3 R's there that are with the rescue, rehabilitate, and reintegrate. I have some few data down there that I can share. To tell you the truth, rescue is an expensive operation. To get to the Volta Lake, plan even rescue these children is not easy because our law enforcement officers are working with little logistics, especially when it comes to trafficking. So you are going to a lake to rescue, and you yourself, you don't even own a boat. So you go and hire a fisherman's boat, and they know you are coming to that community to rescue. We've had some of our officers even drowned before. We have one boat we bought. They drowned it right under the lake. Search. It took a lot of days for us to see because nobody would aid for you to come and arrest me. And people often don't understand. They think it's everybody that we are sweeping. If the child is with a parent and you are not exploiting the child, we have no business rescuing the child from you. I must make it clear, if I live along the Volta Lake, I will swim in it, play in it, bath in it. That does not make me lesser of a person. That is my environment. That is the reality. If I live along the sea, I will do the same thing. If I live on mountains, I will play on mountains. And so the fact that you are staying along the Volta Lake does not make every child there a victim of trafficking or a child being exploited. We must also understand, if I play in the sand as a child, I'll be dirty. It doesn't mean that my parents are not taking care of me or I'm a poor person. These are not the things we look out for. And so most of the operations, Honorable, if you will testify, we don't even do it during vacations because we wouldn't know which child is in school or which child is not, unless we have specific intelligence to say that there is this thing going on. There are so many islands behind the Volta Lake. The Jata Islands around the farm place and Co. It goes way through Eastern Volta up to Yeji, all the way. And so sometimes we had an incident, we had to rescue 21 Ivorians. They were not Ghanaians. What was the story? The trafficker who is a Ghanaian went all the way and told them he's coming to trade them in how to Quranic learning and was using them almost 4 years before we got hint of it and rescued them. And so rescue is done. You have to rehabilitate because most of the time these children don't even know where they come from. If they are as low as 4 years, they recruit them, they use them. Some of them will be 7, 8, they can't even remember the name of their parents. So you have to do a lot of investigations before you get to know their parents. We've successfully almost 90% reintegrated all the children that have been rescued because we can't keep any child. Per even our laws, we don't keep children in institutions for long because we've realized that that is not the right way to go. Prosecution, of course, punishing the offenders. We can't let them go. As the data will show as I proceed, we have very low number, but we've done significantly well looking at where we came from. As at 2015, we had only 1 and 2 convictions. Our first conviction was in 2010 with our Chinese operation that we did. And from there, we had no convictions until 2015. And significantly from 2015, there have been a lot of progress. And so even though it's not as much as we want, we can also pat ourselves at the back and say we've done well because where we are coming from and where we've gotten to, I think Ghana has done a lot more that we need to commend ourselves. The last P is partnership, and I think that's what our Honorable is doing here. All of us are partnering to work and fight trafficking. So we have CSOs on board, NGOs on board, even though sometimes they worry us more, but misrepresentations here and there, but I think all of us are doing our part. And sometimes it happens because all of us don't have clear path. And so all of us, both NGOs, CSOs, whoever is working on trafficking, we will attest that with the MPA and of course how we coordinate things. Things are now getting under one umbrella, under the ministry, and things are moving smoothly. And so for the protection, like I said, in 2019, Ghana, we had our first adult female shelter. I think within West Africa, we had it for the first time. And that significantly helped. And so with the convictions that we started gaining and increasing, shelter is one of the reasons why we are getting them. Because most of the time, you go and rescue, and if you don't have anywhere to put them, what do? So you won't even go at all. Or you finish and then send them back. But with shelters available, both private and government, it has significantly improved the work. And so for the children's shelter, which is also now government owned, we've successfully rehabilitated for the children, yes, as of 2020, 57, 2021, 71. This is just figure for government shelter. We still partner with our private shelter. For trafficking, we have over 15 shelters across the country that we work with. Our partners know that when I rescue, this is the shelter I'm taking the victim, and so we coordinate that, and then straight away it is done. So please, let's not confuse this figure. This figure is not the national data. It's just the Ministry of Gender Shelter or government shelter. When I say government shelter, this particular one is just for trafficking. It doesn't include the social welfare shelters that we are running that still take care of victims of trafficking. And so for the adults, yes, 2019 67, 2020 97, 2021 107. Now this was possible because also government activated the Human Trafficking Fund, and so Parliament approved 1 million each year to be put into the fund. We will talk about other things later, but significantly last year is 2021. Yes, it's now being released, so we are hoping. But I must say it has consistently been released. Yes, let's move on, please. So this is the data from 2017 to 2021. Trafficking data in the past had been a little challenging, so we are trying very hard to keep track, at least those that we've rescued. And so for total victims for 2017, we had 583. 2018 332, 2019 611, 2020 499. We thought COVID people would be sleeping, but unfortunately no, traffickers were really up with their games, and so we couldn't also rest. Even during COVID time, we had a lot of job to do, interceptions here and there, rescues here and there, and we were very mindful of the COVID situation and how if we don't act quickly, people can be exploited. 2021 it's supposed to be 821. This 727 is minus NGO's figure, but the total is 821 rescues. And so you can see male for 2021 were 511, female 216. For children involved for the total 578. So like Honorable was saying, 2021 we had more children being trafficked than adults, and that was because as our 2020 the Gulf situation, because of the COVID, it had reduced, and more people had been returned than those that intended to go, and people were not so sure as to what they intend to do. And so the data is that the highest form of exploitation is actually labor than sex, and because of the internal trafficking, yes, we have more Ghanaians involved than other nationals. But in 2019, you can see we had 335 foreign nationals that were involved. So the prosecution, like I said, in 2016 we investigated 137 cases. Out of that, there was no conviction. Please, prosecution means the process of gaining conviction, the whole process of court and other things. And so 2017 we had 8 convictions. 2018 2017, sorry, 8, 2018, 10, 2019, 10, 2020, 13, 2021, we had also 13. Now, the total prosecution is higher. The convictions here that I was mentioning is the one we use just the human trafficking law to get conviction. And the others, if it is child labor, we use the Children's Act. And sometimes after investigation, you can see it's either recruitment, fraud, those ones. We have the immigration law, we have the labor law. And so a lot of cases can start as trafficking. Sometimes you go in and it is child stealing and all that. So we try to sieve all those ones out and stick to just the trafficking related cases. And so sometimes you can get still higher number, but it's not really directly trafficking. Challenges. You can see this one, I've not beautified it. The interferences, I don't want to go there because you will get chiefs coming to beg. We've had instances where MP so-called you see your pastor coming to beg. It's quite a big challenge. Sometimes you've not even started the process and there's a whole lot of interferences. Again, inadequate resources and funding. I mean, it's clear. Shelter. We still need more across the country to be able to do the work that we do. Knowledge gap among key players. Last year alone, the ministry together with our partners were able to train 580 law enforcement officers, which included customs officers, immigration officers, police, and we had about 10 district court judges involved. All of them are brought under one umbrella so that we can, one, link, collaborate, and then each can understand each other, and then we see the way forward as to what we have to do. But we still need to do more. So this year still we'll be doing it. We started from Western, Central, we are coming down, we'll be going to Volta, Northern. This year is Northern and then Volta. So we hope to finish and then finish with Upper East, Upper West, to ensure that at least we have desk officers in all our law enforcement agencies. The other challenge is the fact that the DOFSU officers or officers that we use that often handle some of these cases are not really functional because of resources that are not available. We have the human trafficking, anti-human trafficking units in the police. They are only in the regional offices. Not even all. The new regions, they are still not there. So we are trying as much as possible to revamp the anti-human trafficking units within the police and immigration. And also the AGs, we have desk officers that we try to work and they handle solely trafficking related cases so that we can move on in terms of fighting trafficking. Porous and weak border control and enforcement is also one challenge. I mean, we've had, I don't know how we can separate the free movement protocol and people being trafficked, because anybody from the West African community can enter freely, and because of this, when they are being trafficked, especially in the adult, it's so difficult to detect because anybody can migrate at free will. And so these are some of the challenges we face. Sometimes they don't even pass through the normal borders that have been earmarked. They prefer to use one community and straight they've entered. And the traffickers also like using places that they cannot be found. And so they use unapproved routes to enter into Ghana and to take them out. Different usage of terminologies. Ghana, our law says human trafficking. IJM will prefer to use modern day slavery. Hello? Hi. And we'll say, please, let's stick to one. So sometimes it's like, what are we talking about? You hear trafficking in persons. Another person will use slavery. In Ghana, slavery has been abolished. And our law has ensured that the Human Trafficking Act have covered all slavery-like activities. And so each, depending on the funding they are getting and the country is coming from, decide to use different terminologies. And so sometimes it looks like we are fighting different monsters. Meanwhile, it's the same monster that we are fighting. And people think that we are not doing enough. And so that's also one key challenge that we have. Of course, misrepresentation by some stakeholders. the reality is that trafficking is happening in Ghana. We can't say it's not. But the other reality also, like I said, is it's not every child you see at the lake or who looks tattered or dirty means that the person is trafficked or is in slavery. Or every child must not work at all, no. And so we need to understand these things and know the reality on the ground. Unfortunately, Honorable, we don't have a national data to be able to call it as a government data and say this is the true picture of child labor or trafficking. We do not have it. And so we only have pockets of research by individuals or international organizations, and we have to live by. And so by and by, we don't know whether it's reducing or increasing based on efforts, because maybe we intensified our awareness raising campaigns and therefore people are now coming out. It's not like it's a new phenomenon, but it was there but we didn't know about it, or truly it's increasing or decreasing. I think this is also one of the challenges that we face as a country, and if we can have a national research on it done by government to at least validate what we have other researchers saying, it will also be helpful. I must throw a word of caution to our students since we are here. Our desire to migrate abroad is just too much. The desire to be called burger, any work burger, and all that. Interestingly, like when you go to Bronga Half, we have Burgers Mothers Association. Go there. You have yes. Go some houses, burger house. Sometimes if even you are going to ask ladies to marry you, they will tell you where to find her. I mean, for Bronga Hafu, it's a known phenomenon. You have to migrate, you have to travel. So the quest and the desire to travel makes everybody want to, be somebody. And those of us who have, the way we also display it on social media, makes people feel like all is well. They don't tell the truth. Our kaya years, when it is seasonal time for them to return, they take their time, look good. And so when you tell somebody that Accra is hard, they'll tell you it's hard, and you have gone. So our desire to migrate makes us very vulnerable, very vulnerable to traffickers, to connection men. People are willing to pay 10,000 to get a passport that is 50 cedis. I don't know why. No matter what you tell them, you bring people that have migrated through the Libya desert and died. I remember one gentleman looked at us after all the community sensitization and said, Madam, it's no yokra, and it's not the bokra. So 10 we are nabakuka ya memene bakono. Yes. And so sometimes too, our own attitude makes it difficult for us to fight trafficking. Victims don't want to report because it involves family members. Sometimes when they come, they have so much expectation that government is going to recoup all the money or all the work they did in Dubai or Kuwait for them. And so if they don't get it, then I'm not willing to even press charges. We can't force you, but then the trafficker will keep what? At large. Sometimes just through WhatsApp, so they don't even know the person who recruited them, their names, because it's just WhatsApp. So they'll say Kofi. These people are able to use SIM cards as so many times and they dump it. So it's very good we are registering our SIM so we can track people by name and by identity. And so I'll pause here, and if there are any questions, I'll take them. Thank you. So.
Thank you very much, and I'm happy that we have Newton to tell you. That popular song, Boga Boga, and so I think that Abdallah has done well. Let's give it up to Abdallah. At this point is the roundtable discussion, but we are going to box the roundtable discussion and the way forward together. So I'd ask my colleague Dakwan, but we give opportunity to members of Parliament to also share their experience and their thoughts on the subject. Thank you.
As my colleague mentioned, my name is Dakwan. I'm the Member of Parliament for Highway South. This is an issue Davis and I had discussed some time back about trafficking. And I was looking at the trafficking of young girls, especially especially. That's what I was looking at. Because we know how prevalent that has been in the past few years. I would really commend him, because I think this is a discussion that has to be brought to the forefront for all of us to own it and champion it in our ways, in our little ways in which we can. I would like to welcome everybody here. Unfortunately, I wasn't here when it started. I had another meeting once again. And I'll be taking the way forward as well as the roundtable discussion. It should be an open discussion where anyone who feels you have something to add to whether it's advice, whether it's a contribution, whether you think it's a role anyone or any organization should be playing to ensure that this fight against human trafficking, it is, as I said, owned by us all. The floor is open to you. But I think I would start by saying, as a member of Parliament, I think the onus lies on us. We represent the people in our various constituencies. We cannot shy away from things that affect our constituents negatively. For me, I am an urban MP, okay? My constituency is in Accra. And as she said, this issue of young girls wanting to travel for greener pastures is something that has come to stay in Accra, especially. We all thought during COVID, because there wasn't a lot of travel, maybe people would lose interest, but we see that it's not gone at all. It has started again. People have fake travel and tours, and then they just start publishing travel to Dubai, travel to wherever for greener pastures. And I think this is one of the ways that they are able to get. That's trafficking. When we talk about sexual trafficking, that is where I am talking about. I've personally had the opportunity to speak to a lady. She actually was able to run to the Ghanaian embassy and she found her way back to Ghana. But others are not as fortunate. And the kind of things they do there, you would be surprised. As they say, it's dehumanizing. By the time they are done with you, you don't even feel like you should come back to Ghana. And so today we are bringing this discussion to the forefront. As a legislator, we're looking at the role of an MP. When we look at legislation, we know there are acts, there are laws when it comes to human trafficking. As it stands now, I think the classification, there's a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. And as it stands now, Ghana is a tier 2 because I think there's this Trafficking Victims Protection Act. And it looks like we do not fully meet the minimum standards. So we are tier 2. The goal will be for us to meet these standards, okay, in order to move higher. Okay, for tier 3, it looks like they are not even putting in the effort. Even though we don't meet the standards, Ghana has been classified as tier 2 because we've put in some effort in fighting trafficking at this point. I think we were classified tier 2 in 2018. 2017, okay. So it was based on work done in 2017. So the classification in 2018 was based on work done in 2017. That gave Ghana this status that we are currently, after 4 or 5 years, we are still at tier 2, which kind of tells us that even though we are making the efforts, there's still more room for improvement. One thing I would look at is our laws as legislators, okay. The one issue I have is with those who traffic family members. We are all aware, some people, when they owe loans and they can't pay, they can even give their niece or their nephew to someone. It is wrong to work. The individual does not have any contract with whoever the child is being given to. They are not even aware of whatever work they are going to do. And a human being is not a commodity to use for payment of loans. So there's a big issue there. And I think the international fight is ongoing, it's going on very well. The police, the security agencies are all on board. But the local fight when it comes to us in our communities, because those given off their relatives or their neighbors, we live with them. When we go to our villages, they are there with us. She mentioned that the chiefs come in to beg, MPs come in to beg, but I think what we need to make clear is that the right thing is the right thing. The law is the law. And once you break the law, you should face the full rigors. I think the more stringent the punishment is, people will actually stay away from any form of giving their child, because that legitimizes it. When a parent is involved indirectly, directly, it legitimizes the trafficking. And for Ghana, it's also our culture, the family system, where we respect elders so much that even if I know I'm being sent somewhere to do a certain type of job I am strongly against, speaking out would be a problem. And so I'm saying for any parent, I think parents should even have stricter punishment. Yes.
No, it depends.
Any parent who is involved in trafficking, there should be stricter measures. I think Paul, the MP for Doma, would like to contribute to this.
Doma is bogus now, you know, it's a bogus
situation.
Bogus now. It's unfortunate. I mean, clearly, this human trafficking, but I will link it to illegal migration because sometimes it's intertwined. And my area is quite high in using the Sahel through to Italy, to the Europe, of which the U.S. Department of State actually recognized in one of their reports that if you come to Italy and Germany, Brussels, these Africans are high there. I mean, clearly, way forward. One of the issues that, for me, always stares at me when I go to my constituency, looking at the youth walking around has nothing to do. The brother calls him from wherever he is, or the friend calls, there's a juicy job somewhere, great job, you can get good money, I'm doing very well. Obviously, working at Doma, going up and down, has nothing to do. What else can he do? What else will she wait for? She will jump on that boat. She will follow that bound. For me, I think it's about time we look at the youth. How are we going to engage the youth? She mentioned after school, what else? I think such programs is important because you engage them from now, that when she comes out of the school, and even she's not doing something, such things should not be an option for him or her. We need to find a way of engaging them during the school times, that coming out not necessarily means that when you come out, jobs are available for you. You may have to go through some struggles. You may have to go through some challenges, but you can engage yourself in this way or that way. That can take your mind off going to use the Sahel to travel out, or somebody calling to tell you there's a good job at Qatar. I mean, what my brother was saying at Dubai, you see that, and they were complaining, and they are not ready to come. They were complaining. But if you ask them, are you going to come? They say, if you come, what am I coming to do? So for me, I think the way forward, and it's a good platform for us, as you said, as legislators and youth leaders or educational leaders, how can we chart a new path for the youth? How are we going to control the narrative such that they will be able to appreciate that, yes, it's going to be difficult, but at the end, we shall see the light. And I think this roundtable is a good thing. I will applaud my brother for this, congratulate the minister for being the ministry taking part, and the youth leaders for taking the initiative to be here. And I hope you go back for us to lead this campaign, because you will be able to. She is in Accra, she has to take off her constituency. I'll go to Doma, but when we come to the University of Ghana, the SRC president will lead that path. And it's good you are here, and I think IJM are ready to support each and everybody. So for me, changing the narrative for the youth will be something that we need to look at as we go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you for the opportunity. Let me be quick in commending the Honourable Member for Mpraeso for taking this up. I was lucky to have been to Budapest with him, where this matter came up strongly, and he's taking it up. Unfortunately, I was a bit lapsed, but he's gotten me back on it. We are dealing with a very huge task. And look, the problem is not one off. The source of the problem is not one off. And we need a holistic approach. The fact is that the only way we may be able to deal with this is to understand the root cause. And as my colleague said, when there are no opportunities, people will have to find a way. When there are no opportunities, people will find a way. It is better to try, how do you say it? To try, isn't it? Yes, so when there are no opportunities, people will find a way. And that's why education should be one of the major focus. And then empowering the law enforcement agencies, especially the Immigration Service, the Ghana Police Service, and even the Judicial Service, in terms of prosecution. And again, if you look at the global report, I think prosecution is one of the reasons why we are not doing so well. I mean, a number of cases, you just reported, I think I took note of that. Over 108 cases investigated, 22 prosecuted, and then 13 convicted. It's one of the areas where we are not doing well as a country, and it's not giving us a good rating in the international community. So I think we need to pay attention to that aspect. But the education, my sister rightly said, the level of ignorance that we have, we must be able to map this country out and understand the source, the origins, so that we target education there and the destination. Because the larger aspect of the problem is with the internal trafficking. It's with internal trafficking. We just have a little of it occurring, to the Gulf. It's because that makes international news. But we have over 80% of it, from the statistics you have presented, being internal. And we need to focus on that. So we should understand the origins, where people move from, and then target our education. In fact, I thought I was going to take an issue with the ministry until I saw that. But I've been thinking that the prevention aspect, the education, is not going too well at the grounds. That's what I've thought. Until you said that you've been doing several sensitization programs in my constituency. Let me tell you, you know the Nigerians. If you go to Wa, let me use Wa, which is a central point. They are in some form of child trafficking, but you won't understand it. They bring them, put them in a particular house, and then give them some trucks that they push around to collect aluminium. To collect aluminium. And then the boss that brings them controls everything about them. Their food, where they sleep, they don't have access. In fact, there's a barrier, communication barrier, if you meet them. And it's a form of child trafficking. And if you don't go close, you won't understand that it's happening. Some come and they help to help them trade, but everything about them is linked. You call them, it goes to the boss. You do money transfer, it goes to the boss. Everything is about them. So the problem is bigger. And I also think that this forum is a very good forum for us to trumpet this thing, and then get the entire House, Parliament, to work on it. And also through the statement, probably we could get a speaker to do some referrals for a committee to look at it, and then we'll see how we can take this matter up. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, to put it in perspective, he's looked at advocacy, sensitization, education. We've looked at a bit of legislation as well. In looking at the role of Parliament, he's also talked about how the Speaker can even champion it to get that education down. All these ways, all these roles we've talked about are excellent in fighting human trafficking. I don't know if there are any other contributions, but before yours, I think Sheila Battels, the MP for Ablikuma North, would also like to say something then.
Thank you very much. Well, first of all, let me congratulate my colleague, Honorable Davis, for this wonderful platform. I would also want to congratulate the ministry and Abna for the fantastic presentation that you've given to us. I think a lot of comments have come in, but if I were to write a book about what I am hearing, I think it reinforces a general perspective that I have. Who cares about the Ghanaian child? I don't know if it's just the Ghanaian child. Maybe we can expand it into the African child. But who cares? I think if you look at all of the challenges that have been outlined, even in the implementation of her work, looking at some of the things that she outlined in her presentation, interferences by politicians, by chiefs, by pastors, and all manner of people who hold power. The question is it necessary for us to do so? Yes, we come in because we want power again, and we do these things at the detriment of the child. But then let's look really at our systems. Our systems are weak everywhere. And we typically blame corrupt politicians. But really, if you look at it all the way down, all of us are corrupt in our own small way. We look at things that will benefit us, and then we are not so concerned about the person next to us. So most people are left to their own fate. And that is why an illiterate mother in the village, someone will allow a child to be working on the river or the lake, and parents in the area will not be bothered where that child came from. If it was an environment where we were each other's keeper, I believe that the narrative will be different, because then somebody would be asking, where did that child come from? These children work on the lake and they grow up on the lake, and nobody asks questions. There are policemen in that community. There are, what do you call it? There is an MP in that community. There are people of influence. Who is asking a question about that child? The problem of weak systems is a problem for all of us. Sometimes we look at just what affects us, but all across board, from the border to the airport to the schools to the hospitals, everywhere you go, there are people who are put in place to take care of things, and they only care about how do I make a buck today. And that is why people can get away with things. And that is why we would also look on and be afraid or not be bothered. Because sometimes, even when you are bothered, the question is that you go and report to the policeman, somebody comes, give the policeman some 100 Ghana cedis, and that's the end of the issue. So why bother? I get so worried. Personally, I look at it from our educational structure. We are brought up to believe that it is only those who are first in class that matter. So the first in class only cares about being first. The second cares about overtaking the first. And the fifth cares about overtaking the fifth and the fourth and becoming first. And it goes all throughout our lives. And then we grow up and all we care about is me, 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 me. So even when there's a challenge happening next door, you are more bothered about how do I make a buck today. And that is why we have such weak systems that cannot help us control all of the challenges we are having, including these children who depend on us, all of us collectively are failing these children. And all of us collectively need to look at it again and ask, what can we do? Because we can sit here and create policies. We create policies and laws. And I'm telling you for a fact, there are so many laws. As a new lawmaker, I think I still haven't been able to read all of the different LIs and acts and all of that, which have been drafted and passed in this house. But then we look around ourselves and we know that there's problems everywhere. And these children are also going to come up, and whatever it is, whether we provide the shelters for them, whether we provide rehabilitation, we have already indented them for life, whether we like it or not. This is the story of their lives, and it will never part from them. And it will also affect the way they behave when they grow up. At what point are we going to say, enough is enough? Let's begin to look at ourselves as one country, that we begin to take care of all that is around us, not only ourselves, but others. That is when we'll begin to solve some of these problems. So, thank you, Madam Mpraeso.
Thank you, Sheila. I think what we also need to understand here is that the stories are a lot. Ignorance is prevalent. But what we all here should take away from here is that no matter the story, we need to understand that human trafficking is a crime. It is as simple as that. And Ghana prohibits any form of human trafficking. So now I'll open the floor again for us to continue. The gentleman there.
Because of my personal experience in the Volta region, I was born in a small community called Andafia. And in that area, at age 9, you could find, boys who can dive very deep in the sea and all. And if you are someone who is unable to do that, you are rather seen as, a misfit of a sort. So you can't swim at this age at all. And going, deep sea fishing and all that is a sense of pride for people in that community. And there are people who have developed sort of a network to siphon these young boys into Benin. So they go to Benin and they can keep them there for over a year or two. And they have technologies for those fishing seasons and all that. And when they are returning to Ghana, the kind of jamboree with which they return, it's a jamboree displayed on the sea with colors, on the boats in a row, and you see very little children. And some of them, their parents willingly let them go there. The height of my shock was when, my dad has farms along the coast, the onion farms, and we go there sometimes. Was when he took some of those kids, some 9, 11, and sent them to community schools in Adapia, just to, give them some education because the teacher. You'll be surprised that some parents themselves would condone the idea that the children should leave school and join that fishing network of a sort to Benin. So we had a situation where more than 11 or 13 of them were sent to school, but they were left with 3 eventually who were continuing the school. All the rest of them joined this network. There was a young lady among them, which we never saw her again after they went there. And you'll be surprised that there are communities who still find pride in these sort of things. My child is able to go deep sea and all. And the ages at which these people are will shock you. So I think that much needs to be done. People need to be given a different sense of pride. What is prestigious and all that, to be able to make them identify that this is wrong and this is right. Because trust me, you would have a hard time convincing people in this particular community I'm talking about that allowing their 9-year-olds to join this fishing, syndicates and all that to Benin is wrong. You would have a really tough time convincing them that it is a wrong practice. The people just want to be part of, when they're on the boat, how they pull it up and down, the colors and all. There's a little boy who just wants to be part of that. That is the height of his ambition. So we really need much education to make people to see beyond these sort of things
If not, it's going to be an adult task.
All right, thank you.
Please, I'd just like to say that I really don't know what the depth of the rehab is, but one of the things she spoke about was under protection, right? Or is it prevention?
Protection.
Protection, rehab. So I just want to say that when you are doing rehab, especially for the girl, all of them, but most especially the girls, please try and do a lot more mental, like, or should I say psychological rehabilitation and all that, because you were saying that one of the reasons why you don't ever get convictions or you have low convictions is because people are not ready to like go to court. And I feel that these kind of things come down to some people's experiences with things like rape. So if somebody was sexually trafficked, right, the person doesn't want to go through the whole experience, because I'm sure because you're a gender ministry, you would have encountered some of these things when you are talking to like rape victims or even physical abuse. They don't want to speak about it because they can't just relive the experience. It's not as if they don't want the help or they do not live, like they don't need the help, but just going through the whole experience again is very, very, very traumatic. So if you can, like, maybe probably you do it, but please, if you can intensify that so that they can speak up more, and then you can have like actual convictions and things like that, because I know that happens a lot in you. And also, I just want to add to what Honorable Sheila said with regards to who cares about the African child. So just a few days ago, that wasn't even directly trafficking. It was somebody that was hitting her child with a roofing sheet. Apparently it was a little brother, and I decided to speak about it. And I was going to the police station at Agoba. When I got into the taxi, and then the taxi driver was asking me, where are you going to? I said, I'm going to Agoba police station to report this. Then everybody in the place was like, but she always does it. I'm like, so she always does it, and nobody thinks it's a wrong thing. I got to Agoba police station. It took me more than an hour because they said that the person is not my relative, and they didn't see how relevant it was. And the nearby Dosu station was Adenta, so they weren't going to give a reference. I had to call like a commissioner of police to speak to them before they had to move with me. And I don't think, and their excuse was, oh, they are not Dosu. But my point is, you are a law enforcement agency. Even if that's not what you are directly supposed to do, you have to show some concern or some willingness to support. Before then, later, you tell me that this is not directly my division, so I will be willing to transfer. So if I didn't know any commissioner to call, you wouldn't attend because the person is not my relative one. And then also, I think society is passed, because when we got there, I kind of understood why they didn't want to go. We got there, and the mother of the child, who was receiving the beating from her sister, said that I am the wicked person because I've gone to call the police and nothing even happened. Meanwhile, people there witnessed that you were trying to stop your daughter from beating your son. So it's just like a whole mix of things. So aside ignorance, like education, I think we have to unlearn and relearn so that like socialization is done better. And also the ministry should look at like more mental support for like the people who thank you very much.
Sorry, can I just, yes. So when you take rehabilitation, it goes even just beyond mental health. Let me reiterate here that we have mental psychologists, we have social psychologists, we have clinical psychologists on site, about 5 of them in different capacities on site to ensure that victims are well rehabilitated. Like I said, you can't force a victim to testify, whether the person feel like reliving it or not. There are others, beginning you start them, they will cry till the end of life. I mean, they can't just re-narrate. There are others so strong that they will tell you everything vivid, how it happened. And so individual capacity here comes to play. Our main point is not really the conviction part. I mean, if we get it, that's okay. When it comes to victims being the key witnesses. For children, it's quite easier because the state and the social workers are able to do it on their behalf. But for adults, of course, you need to testify. We have gender courts, so sometimes you don't necessarily need to go and stand in the whole process, and then there can be in camera, you can just be with the judge. And because of the shelter, it's easier for the officers also sometimes to just come, and so it feels so friendly to be able to get the story. There have been numerous of them that were mentally gone, because they give them injections when they are coming so that they can't tell exactly where they were taken and what happened to them. And so You have to work with the relevant even agencies. Sometimes they can be on admission for days, months, before they can even remember their own names. And so you can't do rehab without considering, because the level of trauma that they go through, it's quite enormous. I mean, case by case, we've had children that the boat has hit their back, we need to do spinal surgery. Some trees have plugged their eye, you need to do surgery for them. As for the bilharzias, the malarias, the diseases, that one is just a common thing. You need to do a whole medical screening for victims. You can't just relapse on any of the standards at all. So it's quite a lot of work. It's capital intensive, human resource intensive and everything, but you have to, do it. And so the awareness raising, yes. Until, for me, if you ask me, I'll say we don't need a new law. We need to enforce the law and ensure systems work. This officer perhaps may be behaving that way because maybe he doesn't know about gender-based violence or trafficking or anything. We can't forgive him for not taking necessary steps and action for the basic protocols that a police officer has been given. Sometimes the society and the fear, because most of them, the problem is if I even take action, somebody else will come and mainly, this mother will not even want to testify. And we've had instances where people have called us witches because there's going to be either arrest or you intercept them, and because they've not seen the exploitation, you hear of it, you intercept, and believe me, the insults, the anger, the rage, it will shock you. The 2019 young ladies that were returned into Ghana during the COVID time after crying they were stranded, our investigations reveal more than 60% of them have gone back. And so it's a whole lot of dynamism. I'll come to the option of the fine. As a practitioner on the field, for me, we can't take the fine out, mainly because of what the premise Honorable started. There are some parents, 12 kids, we don't have that social protection system to really contain. And so if the person's involvement with, like Honorable's example, is very minimal, he didn't just know, I don't see how that parent should get 5 years. But there should be something that will remind her that any day you hear of this story, you should know something is going on in the fine. I remember how honorable members debated during the airline because the law was flat 5 years. And sometimes these international organizations, you can never compare US to Ghana, our systems and their systems. We've consistently told them we've taken our social, cultural, our frustrated, everything into consideration. We are not allowing criminals to slide by. For them, they said trafficking must be equated with rape and kidnapping, which these offense, the minimum is 5 years. But when you take trafficking, how it's interwoven with first trade, the social dynamics and everything. Because when you go to these communities, Honorable, it's so pleasing to know that even dragging this mother to court or to the police station to just sign a bond that I won't do that again is more than a jail time. Like, because the fear alone of police, the idea that I have a bond. And so for us, we need to look at the options of punishment. There are certain places you don't even have the court. And so the nearest court will be a circuit court. Circuit courts don't handle cases that can be jailed more than 2 years. And so that means the maximum the perpetrator can get is 2 years. It goes beyond just, so for me, if we want to look at that option again and make it 5 years, but we should also be ready to ensure we have all the systems in place that will cater, because as we speak now, the shelters are full. Not because we keep them there for long. No, some they drop in after 3 days, you've seen their parents, they are gone. Others, you go on a rescue, you think you are going to rescue 3 kids. You get there and realize there are 30 on the lake. You have to get money readily available, feeding, clothing, medical, because if you delay, sometimes they'll be walking. Until you take them to the police hospital, they do all the checks or any nearby clinic, and you realize that they are walking dead. Hunger, malnutrition, it's a whole lot. And so for me, I'm glad this meeting, and I'm happy for the first time that I'm at Parliament and not being, because there are sometimes honorable testify when we come to our various select committee you practically be running away because some see you as rather an intruder in their communities. Meanwhile, this is something lingering on because those honorable members along the lake and all, they feel you are just disturbing them because their community members will come. One member of Parliament have accused me for him losing his seat because it was during election time. We have to rescue. And for him, it's a matter of his, chairperson being involved and all that. You have to do your work as opposed to, and it's not easy. The pressure, So for me, we can look at the law again. If we think the fine can be taken out, we can bring it back for amendment. But we have to be sure, whilst we are also giving people 5 years, we have 5-year long-term plan for these children that will be left behind by the parents. And like I said, those that we've jailed, they are in foster care. So social welfare needs to be resourced enough to be able to care for these children. There are some adults, their parents don't want them. They see them as a failure. They don't want them. You need to resettle them. Give them vocational training and everything. Others feel like, you willingly travel. Nobody wants to travel and come back exploited. Me and you can just go as normal people. Your passport can be missing. You meet somebody, say, let me direct you to the embassy. You get kidnapped. You've been trafficked, gone. You can be exploited irrespective of your status. We've seen police, nurses, doctors. We need teachers in China to teach English. They go and they end up somewhere else. As for the offer they give these traffickers and the recruitment agencies, it's so juicy that if you are not smart, you will fall. We saw in Nigeria a scammer came and recruiting doctors and told them they are sending them to Dubai. And you saw the queue of doctors in the hotel. These are medical doctors, you don't expect them. And that's why individuals will tell you how bad their country is. It's only when they travel and they realize that their country is heaven. Ghana, well, maybe where I sit. But when you travel, you realize that Ghana is really good. It's not that bad. So if we can make our systems work, institutions strengthened, being accountable, I think we will get somewhere.
Okay, thank you. The honourable member for Lower West Akem would like to also contribute.
Thank you very much. I would like to touch on cyber. I kind of realized that you've been talking about just about the face-to-face sort of trafficking. That there's a growing concern in terms of cyber crime or cyber trafficking. Your last sentence that we have enough laws, but when technology is involving, then you know that you need to amend your act to include cyber crime. That's it.
I think on that, if you look at the Cyber Security Act, it caters a bit for that. What is lacking is the exploitation of. For me, we have the laws, but it is identification of the practice that is important. I do social media a lot. I'm on Snapchat, and sometimes you see young ladies advertise a certain lifestyle for people. You see them in the UAE, they sit in boats and they advertise certain lifestyles. Recently in Dubai, I met some of these girls, and I was amazed. The kind of lifestyle where they live and the conditions that they find themselves, you'll be amazed. Girls who were in Ghana so nice, you see them now and color the crash. But that is the reality. That is what is happening. So for me, I think we have the laws, but
how we are able to arrest such practices, especially on social media, is something that we need to take a second look and be looking at. So I'm happy. I mean, with your cybersecurity background, I'm happy that you are bringing this. So we should be looking at that. Thank you.
I will have the gentleman also give us a contribution.
Thank you very much, Honorable. For us at the National Union of Ghana Students, this is a very sensitive social issue that has its own economic ramifications, and you realize that most of the victims are children of school-going age, and so it becomes our business. I have two quick questions for the Ministry of Gender and also IJM, if you will. You realize that your presentation centered on those around the Volta Lake enclave, right? But we also have issues of trafficking dotted around all other parts of the country, cocoa growing areas, mining areas. We have the farming communities and all that. What is IJM doing to support all those other communities and the ministry as well? My second question to the ministry is that there are dotted efforts of various NGOs and bodies, you know, that are all working to deal with the issues of trafficking. What is the ministry's plan to coordinate all of these dotted efforts so that they can all come together and share a pool of ideas? If you will, to also generate data that Madam Asare was talking about, so that we can all gear our energies towards achieving the same goal, other than just allow anybody do their own thing. At the end of the day, we just get small pockets of results. Thank you.
I think you've made a very good point, but let me assure you that we work around everything. I made an example of the Volta Lake because I think that's the easiest area all of us are conversant with, and mostly because that's the area IJM is working. Every NGO has their area of operation, and so for them, their main mission is to ensure that issues of child labor reduces on the Volta Lake. There are others that are working in the cocoa sector. There are others that are working in the mining sector. There are others that are working on child sexual exploitation and commercial sex work. There are others that are looking for agriculture. And so all these are within our national plan of action. All these stakeholders are in the database. All of us work hand in hand. There are others that fall under other ministries. We need to collaborate with them. When we take the Gulf countries, we have a technical working committee chaired by Foreign Affairs, but it's about 5 key agencies that are working on it. When it comes to child labor is under Ministry of Employment. Trafficking is a minute aspect of child labor, and so majority of this work is being done under Ministry of Employment. I come in anytime there is trafficking, and trafficking is everywhere, including the streets of Accra. And so as long as there is trafficking, it has no boundary. It is a cross-border issue. It's an international issue. You'll be here, UK Border Force will call you. There is ABCD. What do you think? You have to tell them, you refer to the High Commission there, they will have to work with them, embassies. And so the coordination, we are just a coordinating institution, but you have to be very up to know who and who are working on the field, including even the recruitment agencies. You need to even find a way of identifying those registered, those unregistered, to engage, where you need to arrest, where you need to even ask certain things to aid your investigations and all that. And so, yes, we are working in all the areas.
I just want to chip in something. Those street children on our streets, you see, let's stop giving them money, me and you. When is the way we give money. Ghana is God-fearing country. So, how a 5-year-old child begging, then you give money. You think you go to school? So initially nobody will give you money. Nobody gives money. So we should stop giving them money. When they come out today, they don't get money. For 1 week, they don't get money. Those bringing them won't bring them again. We trace, and it's a woman who bought a minibus. Unless she has a minibus, then she brings them from Niger, get a mosque, keep them there, prepare food for them. Then every morning she drops them at 37 Legon area. That's how she drops it. In the evening, the bus comes, and then she picks them away. You know, we are following up. It's a business. So if we stop giving them money, she will send them back.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. We'll have the last contribution.
All right, thank you very much. My name is Ohima, Secretary for Women Development, NUGS. Okay, so my point will be on sensitization, because I don't know what goes into your sensitization. You made mention of the fact that parents don't get to know where their kids end up. And I don't know how your sensitization is being done, the education you give to them when you go to them. Is it like you tell them that, okay, so you need to follow up with the schools, your supposed person is coming for your kids, and how you can follow up in the various schools they end up being. And also, I believe that the kind of energy we put in wanting to, you know, gain power and become MP, the movement we make in our various constituency, that's the kind of energy we should give when we are trying to educate these people within our constituency. We made mention of the routes, the how do you call it, the trafficking, the buses they come with. So if that is the case, what has been done yet? I know we have security agencies, and I've seen a number of how do you call it, cameras, the security cameras. So can we have that at our borders? And if they are using unapproved routes, what is the way forward? We have ambassadors at various individuals. I don't know the format or the proceedings, but is there a case where an ambassador knows the kind of, if it's someone migrating from Ghana to Dubai, is there any, you know, statistics that can prove the number of people who are moving into the UAE, and how to keep track of them and know their whereabouts and what they are engaged in and all that?
Your question on data. Sources of data for migration can be at Ghana Immigration Service, the number of people exiting. It can also be collected at the embassies as to the number of visas given. The onus lies on all migrants to report to the various missions abroad when they get there. But typical Ghanaians don't want to do that. They won't, practically. For adults and migrants, you can't force anybody, but that is actually the things that we are supposed to do. And so for the data, those who have migrated or traveled legally, you can get the data and know the number of people that have traveled. But those who have gone illegally or irregularly, of course, you should know it's a hidden market. You wouldn't be able to tell. Something interesting happened. We had a Kuwaiti ambassador there to engage them because of these Gulf countries. And so whilst we were saying that 10,000 people have been given permits to work as domestic workers, he said, I have about 100,000 of them. Our data is showing 10,000. Yes, of the people who have arrived there and working now, almost 100,000. And so you can see those who have gone irregularly. Some will go under the disguise that we are tourists, and then they end up working. And so the agenda have changed. And so for data, those who have migrated well, with visa numbers, you can get the information. But those who went underground, you were talking about borders. Do you know Ghana, somebody's bathhouse share a border with Togo?
Yeah, you know, that's all.
They live along the community, they know each other. The same way.
They have married our women.
Some per border, the same way. So, I mean, it's a whole lot of things. We have designated borders, and so if somebody decides to use somebody's farm, you can't put a CCTV in somebody's farm. Where will you even hang it? You understand? And sometimes you get community people to aid such people because they give them money. There are, assuming you see somebody sitting on a motorbike with somebody at the back just crossing. It's so innocent, but it could be that it's the person's business, just crossing people. You will not know. The lake comes all through Burkina down all the way. Sometimes you see people just as if they are fishing. They enter into your territory. You will not know. And so it's not a simple thing to just identify illegal migrants. If it is so simple, I think by now Europe, they have ended it long ago. That it's not that easy to just identify irregular migrants. Now remember, community sensitization or information giving, it's up to also the individual. to digest and understand what you are talking about. The example that the gentleman gave, we went into a mining community. The parents themselves were bold enough to tell us that they will not let their children stop mining because it brings money to them. We asked, why won't you, the mothers and the fathers, do the mining whilst the kids go to school? And so with this, until there is stringent law that will punish them for the others to see. Because some of them said, when I take mine to school and I see that these people are doing, then I will withdraw mine to come and be part, because there is money involved. The children themselves get to see the money. They are no more interested in school. 10 years, 15 years later, they don't have the same energy, and now they become a burden because no skills, nothing. And so the issue is not just, it's not that simple. I mean, I must put it plainly. It's not that simple. It's not. Some communities are so close that they know everything that is happening, but they will never tell you. They won't. They know all the criminals. They know everything. Most people know what they are doing. It's wrong.
How many did we rescue for? The Niger, how many? We rescued more than 100 and something.
Yes, the 21.
Then we went to the embassy.
They didn't take that.
They said, if we have the means, we send it.
Okay, so we'll take the last two. That's the gentleman can go, and then you, the lady, will have the final word.
All right. Thank you very much, Honorable. I believe that this is a wake-up call for all of us to do our bit to combat this crime from our society. But I would want to know if there is any way we can chip in this sensitization in the classroom for our younger ones, so that they would also get to know that if somebody comes to you and lure you that I'm going to take you here for you to do this, you get this and that, they will have a little sense or knowledge about trafficking. Also, there is an advice to the mainstream politicians or the political actors. I believe if we really want to tackle this situation, we should be able to stick to the political role and allow the law enforcing agencies to punish the perpetrators when they are brought to book. And you know, the political institution cannot do it alone. How are we going to trigger in the sensitization to the other social institutions? Because even in the church, it happened. We have people that if you need children to stay with, you go with them, all kinds of categories, they will get them for you. What are you going to do to stop this? What are we going to do to mitigate the level of poverty so that fresh graduates in our system will not be migrating to abroad to search for greener pastures? So I believe it's a wake-up call for all of us to do our bit to stop this trafficking in our system. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we agree.
Thank you very much. It's a very good point, and we'll take it. We'll take it on.
I was also thinking with regards to the labor exploitation, we realize the areas like Volta, like this, and maybe the Opoku. What if maybe some of these people who take in the children to express their manpower don't have alternative measures to use in their work areas? So maybe the people that Volta, those who do the fishing and all that, the children would have to go into the lake because they don't have maybe technology or maybe other alternative measures to use. So maybe government could also focus, and maybe the ministries could also collaborate, so that maybe they give them alternative measures, like the Opoku, give them technology, other processes, maybe research and all that can be done, so that these people will also focus on this authenticity, educate them on that, and I'm sure it will help reduce the rate at which they use the kids' manpower. That's all I'm saying.
All right.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you very much.
We'll add it to our basket.
We appreciate all the contributions that you have all made. We've taken note of all of them. And we can assure you that as members of Parliament, we would add our voices to this fight against human trafficking. That is something we pledge to do. From your contributions and from all the things you said, one thing we should all take away is that clearly we need to have broader consultations
concerning the issue of human trafficking. Okay, you talked about the education aspect where it's not trickling down into the schools. Okay, and that is one thing that I believe broader consultations will bring to the fore, and then whatever sensitization that is required from us or from the ministry, that too will be done. So once again, I'd like to thank all of you. We appreciate your time. Because of the dynamic nature of this world, even as we sit here, traffickers are finding new ways of trafficking. That's what we need to understand. This is not a one-day event. It is a step in the right direction. On this note, it was a very lively, interesting interaction with you. I would hand over to the Member of Parliament for Mpraeso. He can give us his final words. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you very much, Nakwan. Thank you for this very wonderful discussions. So we realize that there's a need to do more with awareness. We've also looked at the law as it stands now and the need to have some amendments. And as members of parliament, we'll be looking at that. We have rapporteurs around who would be giving us a report of the discussions we have had today. Like I said earlier on, the aim is to contribute to the awareness creation and also how we are able to refine the law. So we'll be doing more. This meeting is not going to be the end. We'll be engaging you the more. And just to tell you that as parliamentarians, our doors are always open, especially those of you from the various campuses. Let's pick this matter up. You can invite any of us who would come to campus and engage students, especially on the burger business. I have a colleague who was in the University of Ghana, and so many years after school, he's a very good friend of mine. He, in his attempt to go to the United Kingdom, somebody he trafficked drug. I mean, you come back and the money that is even giving you cannot even get that for you for a whole year. I mean, that is a challenge that we find ourselves. I have colleagues I have friends in UPS who tell me that today people come to them just to be able to traffic drug, not outside the country, even within Ghana. And what they do is that if you're a young lady, you come, the security that you give is that you strip naked, pictures are taken of you, and if you leak information, your pictures will be released out. So these are some of the challenges, and these are some of the discussions that we should be having. And just to tell you, we are very positive members of parliament, always willing and ready to contribute to some of these changes in our society. And fall on us anytime. I mean, any time, any day, whatever you need. We don't have money, but we have the voice and we have the platform to voice out some of these concerns. So thank you very much. I'll hand over to IJM to give us the closing session and also the closing prayer. Thank you all for coming. It was a wonderful time with you. Thank you. God bless us all.
All right. And thank you very much, Honorable, and thank you, Honorable Deputy Minister, Honorable Members of Parliament, and Abna for the wonderful presentation. And everybody who was here, the media, thank you so much for coming. We are very glad that we're able to have this roundtable discussion. I think that we've all learned one thing or the other, and I'm just hoping that, and this will just spark our desire and then our commitment to trafficking and to look beyond ourselves. And because sometimes when we, as human beings, we get caught up in our own world and we don't look beyond ourselves. And then we end up pointing fingers at somebody else for a broken society. But then everything depends on each one of us. And in our own small spaces, wherever we are, we have a platform and a voice that we can use to speak about these things and break change. So I just want to encourage all of us that there's nobody here in this room who cannot be a positive influence over this issue. So let's all dig deep within ourselves and see how we can keep on leveraging on today and beyond to speak about this and other issues. So thank you very much. And as I said earlier on, we are always glad to support in any way that we can. So we look forward to seeing all of us one more time in the very near future. So if there is no other thing, I would just like to give the closing prayer. Shall I pray? And dear Lord, thank you so much for today. Thank you for giving us life and breath to be part of this. Thank you for the ability to advocate about these issues. We are praying that you help us to continue in this regard. Help us to be each other's keeper. Help us to use the platforms that we have to be a blessing to our brothers and sisters within our communities and even far beyond our borders. We honor you and we thank you today. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.